This is Gangsta-Gangsta, and I am your host, Askari, Abdul-Muntaqim, and I'm here with my co-host,
Mr. Michael Hall.
the artist formerly known as Baby Duck from Westside Detroit Gangster. So this broadcast is powered by J-Touch Digital Communication, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Askari Enterprises Incorporated, and we have a really exciting episode for you here today. So we're here and we're going to be talking with Mr. Damian Williams. Some people will call him Little Football. Others will call him by various other names. But we'll talk to him and he'll tell us what he wants to call it. But I call him Mujahid. But we'll talk to him and he'll speak to us and tell us what he wants to be called. But for those of you who may or may not know or remember who Damian Williams is or was, that he's the young man who hit Reginald Denny in the face with the brick on the corner of Florence and Normandy at the beginning of what some people call the LA riots and others call the LA rebellion. So with no further ado, let us bring in the brother Damian Williams, who I call Mujahid. Let's bring him in and see what he has to say. So Mujahid, how are you, brother?
By the grace and mercy of Allah, first and foremost, I want to extend my greetings and peace to both y'all. Assalamu alaikum. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm looking forward to this time to dialogue with both of y'all. As when it comes to calling me, some people call me Mujahid, but I really want to because a lot of people know me as their game or their football. It don't bother me because Allah knows my heart. So I'm glad that we want to go about this conversation. Whatever's familiar, let's just rock with that, inshallah.
Inshallah.
This call and your telephone will be monitored and recorded.
All right, we know that to be true because people still call Michael Baby Ducks. Some people still call me J Mac. But that's fine. Like I say, I tell people all the time. I work at a place and they call me Askari there because that's the name on my name tag. And some of them call me John. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Whichever you call me, it's okay. I'm all of it. Okay. So let's get right into this because we have very limited time. So let's go ahead and get right into this. If you can call back when it goes off, that would be fine. Full disclosure, and I'm always talking about full disclosure. So full disclosure, I know a lot about you, right? I've known you for years, so I know a lot about you. But what we're going to be doing, we're going to be talking, and I guess some of my questions will be informed by some of the knowledge that I already have about you. But what I want to do is kind of go back a little bit and talk about who you are as a human being, how you got there. But we want to detail what happened there on the corner of Florence and Normandy in ways that will give you the opportunity to speak to that pivotal moment in American history where people saw that and were shocked and riveted by the actions and behaviors of what was going on in Los Angeles at that time. And you can provide us with a perspective that no other human being can. Not only were you there, but you were intimately involved in it, and you were prosecuted world famously for your actions on that day. But before we talk about that, talk to me about because this is Gangsta-Gangsta, and Gangsta-Gangsta we try to talk about the real effects of having making the decision to become a gangster. And I'm not talking about a gangster crip. I'm just talking about a gangster period, a gang member, particularly in Los Angeles, but all over California, the United States, and even indeed the world. We talk to all kinds of people. But talk to me about that. What happened in your life that made you turn into Little Football? What was going on there?
To be honest with you, and I'm glad you asked that question as far as based on my thought process over the years.
We're all on the road, huh?
Your telephone will be monitored and recorded.
I've been able to talk about it openly because I've been able to heal from the process. And what a lot of people fail to realize, a lot of people think based on the environment is what led me to the streets, being around such people as yourselves and a lot of the older loved ones. But what led me to the streets is that I was abused when I was a young dude by a neighbor. And it had hurt me so deep that I was looking for love and I was looking for protection. Plus, I couldn't get it in my home because back in the 80s, being molested was frowned upon, and at that particular time, our parents would put that inside the closet and not speak about it. So I felt my family didn't protect me the way that I wanted to be protected. So as I was looking out my front door, I see a lot of the older loved ones that was moving about within the community that represented the gangster. I started seeing their strength at a very young age. So by me seeing that strength, I told myself I want to be a part of that because I feel that if I go out there and speak and I start representing the gangsters, that I will be protected and I will learn some skills how to defend myself. So that's what led me out there, and that's what led me to meet people like Lil Ope and, certain other individuals that was my age that was already representing that gangster lifestyle. So what I did, I attached myself to them, and that's when my career started, when I started hanging around them at a very young age, like 13 years old.
Mm. And what role did your brother play in that, if any?
Well, my brother really didn't play a role in it because you got to remember, I was 10 years old when my brother got incarcerated for that triple murder. So he was gone. And by him gone, I feel one thing that I did feel is that if he would have been in society at that time, a lot of things would have been different for me because he was a disciplinary in my home for me because we grew up in a home without having fathers. But based on that he was gone, there wasn't no father figure in my house. My oldest brothers was in Job Corps. My sister was in college. I didn't have nobody to turn to, so I ran to the streets.
Okay, but your brother was for lack of a better term, a legendary H-Ray gangster. You're little football. Your brother was big football. That had to have an impact on who you were, how other people seen you, what you had to live up to. There had to be some impact there.
What I did want to do based when I did start gang banging, based on that my brother left in 1983 and he was only 8 years old, I did want to carry that name on strong. So when I went into the streets, I went in there full fledged, and I was able to be around individuals that was stumped down representatives like Michael, like Baby Duck, like yourself, like Big Trey Ball, like Little Trey Ball, like Big Track, and certain individuals that I was able to look up to because they was pushing a hard line. So what I did, I took what I seen them do and I implemented it into my own life, and I took it up on my shoulders to represent not just for myself, but at the same time to keep my brother's name being remembered, and that's what took place.
Right. So, Michael, what do you have to say?
No, I'm just listening right now. I find it very interesting. I'm learning a lot already, things that I didn't know. So this is very interesting. The last time I seen a little football, man, he was somebody I was looking up to. So this is very interesting. I just want to continue to hear what he got to say.
Wonderful. Yeah. So, all right. So now you're little football. You're out there in those streets. So, like I said, I know things, and so I guess I'm gonna ask some questions based on some of the things that I know. You became a major figure on the North, right? We know. So when I talk about the North, H-Ray Gangsta has many sides. They have the West Side, the North Side, the South Side, the Back West, the Far West. They have like all these sides, right? And on the North Side, you became a figure. And I don't know if you want to talk about that or not. If you don't, we don't have to talk about that. But what happened in your life where you started to gain notoriety? Like, you're talking about here, Baby Duck is talking about he looked up to you. So you had to have done something in your career where people are starting to look up to you. And, so talk about where that began, on the streets. And then you can talk about maybe a little bit what happened when you were in the pen.
Well, what took place with me is that, like I said, let's go back to my abuse when I was molested. When I came into the streets and I started becoming a gangster, I took on a fearless mentality. And when you seen people like Big Trey Ball, you seen people like Big Track, you seen people like Big Crazy D, you seen people like Baby Ducky, so forth, dudes that was honorable in the streets and that was really represented. I happened to come into it at a young age when A-Trey was at its all-time high, when nobody wanted to come up against A-Trey. So when I seen that mentality, I seen it in their walk, I seen it in their talk, I seen it in their actions, I implemented that same belief within my system. being already wounded at a very young age from what took place to me, I came into H.A. Gangster where mentality is either live or die. Don't.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Yeah, call us back.
I felt that I was already wounded by what happened to me at a young age. So when I stepped in full fledged. I was going to represent it right, and whatever I had to do, I was willing to do it. And one thing, I've been in the boxing ring ever since I was a kid, so I already was growing up having hand skills. So if my opponent didn't know what he was doing in hand-to-hand combat, it was a great possibility that he was going to lose. And I think was tell.
Ooh, what you know about them hands and feet, boy?
Remember, my brother was gone. I didn't have nobody to run to, and back then I couldn't run above Baby Doug and Ball and all them crying. And they would have did me in because I wasn't no back then. You couldn't.
So what you would have done him in, Michael? Would you have done him in if he came to you crying, talking about, man, somebody beat me up, man? What you back then?
Back then I wouldn't have done him in because I respected his big brother so much. When his big brother caught his case, I was hanging out with his big brother in the north side every day. I mean, I was blessed not to catch a case back then. You can say I was blessed or not blessed because I eventually caught a life sentence, but I could have easily caught a life sentence back then. So I respected his big brother so much. No, I wouldn't have done it in. I would have tried to talk to him. I would have tried to ask him, is this what he really wants? Do he really want to push this way, or
you don't knock it off? What the? Knock it off.
I would not have done him in.
Okay, I mean,
I looked up to that man.
He said you would have done him in.
I love big football, bro. Big football, him, Slowpoke, all those guys. Those they was doing it right back then. I was following in their path. So no, I wouldn't have done him in. Nah.
Yeah, no. He said I couldn't run the big track or big ducky, baby duck or the ball. I couldn't run nobody. I'm crying. Somebody to hurt me, man. I don't want
He didn't think he could. He didn't think he can, but he could have. He would have been able to come to us.
Hey, Deacon Michael just said that back in the 80s, if you had come to him crying like a little girl while you had your gangster on, he would have been understanding. He would have embraced you. I
didn't say I would have been understanding. I said that I would have talked to him. I would have asked him, did he really want this? I would have told him about his brother. I would have told him about how H.A. Gangster performs. We don't do no crying. We tough. We might take an ass, but we ain't gonna accept it though. So I would have told him all of those things.
Yeah.
Baby Duck was a bad man in the 1980s.
I mean, we know this. He's still over here trying to talk like Gandhi now. Because he's a deacon in the church. You trying to talk like Gandhi now. Knock it off.
Hey, boy. Hey, little boy.
Yes.
What I was telling him is that I looked up to your brother so much. Like I was running with your brother, and then when they caught their case, I was on the north every day. And that was 1983. So that was for H.A. Gangsters, 1983 was our year. We was putting in work every day. So, your brother was somebody I really looked up to. He was a friend of mine. He was a homie. So I wouldn't have never did nothing to his little brother. I would have just tried to give you some type of advice. It might would have been some tough love, but I would have tried to give you some type of advice.
Yeah, well, what I was going to do, I was going to make sure when I signed on, it didn't have to make it. Because one thing I seen y'all do, I seen a buster get busted. You, Crazy D, Joker, Preacher, Lil Cave, man, all y'all back in the days, y'all was ruthless. So I feel that I couldn't step into that arena playing those type of games. I had to come in there full fledged. Right. Little Oak was a young grown man.
Yeah.
aggressive.
Absolutely.
At 2 years old, Oak was aggressive even too with his silver teeth in his mouth. So you get around him at that young age, been coming and playing, and like I say, everybody was at a trade gas. Y'all were getting it from every which way. So you had to come in strong. So when I signed on that 13, I just made a commitment. I said, man, I'm just gonna come in here strong, and whatever the outcome gonna be, it's gonna be at that particular time in my life. And like I said, I knew I was standing on the shoulders of some giants. That's what I could get it started at that time. Because y'all names are being there, and every time y'all pulled up in that yellow van that Stroke Token Daddy had, y'all came out and like y'all was a Navy SEAL.
Hey, and you remember that stuff, huh?
And y'all could come out there, pop up in front of in front of the house. Y'all just out with fresh Pumas on and golf caps. Y'all got right. I said, yeah, I'm gonna be a part of that right there when I grow up.
Okay, so now we know. Now we know that Michael.
I didn't want no Jerry curl.
So now we know that Michael is the cause. Michael's the cause of all this mayhem that later happened many years later, right? But that's the thing. That's one of the things we want to talk about. Is that's what happens, right? Each of us have reputations based on the different things that we've done, right? And those things carry on. Those things carry on, and they carry on to new generations. And other people are always looking after me. I remember a dude walking up to Lil Dame on the yard and saying, "Hey, Lil Football, hey, what's going on, man? I've been always wanting to meet you, right?" And I remember him telling him like he said, "Man, he said, don't call me that." Right? He said, "Don't call me that. My name is Mujahid. Don't call me that." Right? But what I'm talking about is that's what ends up happening is that we put things in the world, and that has a life of its own. It comes back, and so you're not knowing when you're jumping out the van with Slowpoke and the crew. You're not knowing that you're affecting this young generation like this. You're just doing what you're doing,
exactly.
And then later on, you know, his mind is like, okay, I got to be like them. I got to be like them. I got to be them. And then all the stuff that you all were doing at that time, you know, was, you know, putting so much out there that like everybody's like, whoa, name, right? And you don't know that the impact that has. But that's the same thing when we change our lives and turn in a different direction. We do the same thing. If we're still same people, we bring that same thing to the table. We actually kind of put the opposite side in the world, and people start to emulate the better parts of our better angels, so to speak. But let me ask you something, Mujahid. Now, because I do want to get to this point about this Florence and Normandy. Now, what happened? Was it 71st where the police came? Was that 71st?
Yes, on 71st.
Okay. So what happened on 71st? When that incident happened with the police, talk to us about that from a perspective of being there.
Well, honestly, we was already on the block real deep. It was probably about like 30 of us already when the verdict had came down. And so everybody had started walking towards the Gangster, which we call Tom's Liquor. If anybody know about that area over there. And the process was going up, walking to the store. Officer happened to see us and stop. And when get out of his car, and when we got out of his car, everybody already just pleased about the verdict. So a lot of the older loved ones start saying, curse words to him and tell him to get their punk ass up out of here. Y'all ain't welcome around here. So he called back up. So when he called back up, it's like in a matter of seconds, you got police coming from everywhere. But everybody was so already upset about the Rodney King verdict that when they came, somebody said, "Man, we ain't going nowhere." So when we heard we ain't going nowhere, next thing you know, the commotion started. They trying to grab people throwing bottles, people throwing rocks at them, people pushing them, they pushing people trying to throw people over the gate. So it was a very chaotic situation, and it was so much bad blood already with LAPD based on all the stuff that we have been going through with LAPD for numerous years. And then especially with the Latasha Harden situation, the black community was already set up. Already upset. So when they did and it started, At that particular time, I'm just going to speak for myself. I can't speak for everybody else because I don't know how they felt. But at that particular time, when the police did come, I was ready to die that day because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And just before that happened, like 2 or 3 months before that, LAPD had stopped me and my mom on 84th and Western. So when they came, I told myself, here go my chance to give me some get back. Because I was so cold in my head back then. I said, I'm gonna don't feed one of them and break and run.
Absolutely.
And so as the ruckus was going on, all we heard is everybody clear out, clear out, clear out. So next thing you know, all the police start jumping in their cars and they disperse. You got a walking bomb right there on Army and 71st. Next thing you know, everybody migrated to Florence and Army, and it blew up like a wildfire.
Well, who did they take into custody that y'all tried to snatch back? Who was that?
They took my oldest cousin Morris, and they took Nick Condell, which is the little youngster that stayed on 71st right across the street from me.
Yeah. And who? Well, I don't think I'm gonna ask you that way. So, talk. What did you see with respect to him being snatched back from the police, or how that tried that? Because they have some footage of it a little bit. But
yeah, he wasn't going willingly because they was pulling him in one direction and the people was pulling him in a different direction. We had a lot of older elders that came out in the process of that taking place and telling us, to calm down, relax, and don't do this and don't do that. But like I said, at that particular time, we were so full of that black rage, it didn't matter what they said. Like everything.
Right.
Go at whatever we had to go at that particular time. Because like I said, if one knows what we went through in that community with LAPD, they would know our mentality that we didn't care. We was willing to cause bloodshed out there that day based on what had took place for Rodney King and what had took place prior for Rodney King's situation within South Central with the LAPD. And anybody know anything about 77 precincts, they don't play fair with black people.
No, they don't.
Well, I've been gone 20 years. I don't know if the mentality has changed with LAPD from back then until now, but I know when we was going, they wasn't playing no games. They wasn't playing fair with us.
Yeah, well, they have changed.
We wasn't willing to.
They have changed. The police
wasn't willing to.
Oh, great.
We wasn't willing to back down then on that day. We was ready for whatever.
Yeah. I do want to say that LAPD has changed in the last, since the 80s and 90s. They absolutely have changed. I'm not saying they're a perfect organization. They're far from it. I'm not saying they ain't still got road cops running around doing crazy stuff that they were doing back then. They still do have some, but it is nowhere near that kind of almost universal culture of bad policing that they had in LA back in LA. Those people were brutal against our communities.
Right.
Nice.
Exactly.
And that might have been the first time that there's somebody tried to snatch somebody back from the LAPD. Who knows?
Absolutely. Hey, to piggyback off what you just said, Askari, yeah, you're right, though. Since I've been out here, I have seen a change in the LAPD. They really don't even pull people over unless they're just doing something blatantly nowadays, and so I have seen a change. Policing in Los Angeles is very different than what it was back in the 80s when I was terrorizing the streets.
Absolutely. And they may have needed those kind of guys when we were out there, to be perfectly. I don't know. I can't. I say that and then people will be like, oh, man, what you mean? But I don't know. I'm saying that the 80s was bad on both sides, right? There were some really, really bad actors. I tell people sometimes, but go and just look up the stats. Go look up the murder stats of 1980s in the 90s in Los Angeles, and you'll know what I'm talking about. You will know that as bad as it is now, it is nowhere near what was going on back in that time. It was outrageous. Remember, Michael, I was telling you that I used to see funeral processions every day going down Vermont or going down some street, going down Western. Every day somebody's having it was crazy. It was insane. Okay, now go ahead. No, Dame, go ahead. Finish your story.
Yeah, I know it was dangerous because I remember back in the 80s when it used to come through and they would be busting. My mama was a strong Christian woman. She believed so much in Jesus that it never happened to her.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
As soon as the bullets get to pop, she dives on the floor like Superwoman. Hey, my mama thought Jesus was the answer to everything. Boy, they came over with some shotguns and a 357 and 38 when she died with that. And damn.
And you know your mom became a lightweight celebrity in LA. She became a lightweight celebrity in LA after when you was going on trial and all that stuff.
Yeah. She's a strong woman. I love her to death, and she always was willing to stand up to fight for what's right. Because you got to remember, my mother come out that deep south. My mother came out that cotton field, so she experienced racism firsthand. So she
Right.
So she knew that if she didn't stand up and fight for me the way that she did, they would have fried me inside that courtroom. So I'm very thankful. And one thing I want to do is, Scar, while we're on that topic, I just want to say, I never said to people, I just want to thank all the black people that supported me in 1992. Because if it was not for the people coming down to the building and for the people protesting for me, I would have been still in prison ever since 1992.
You have 60 seconds.
Right.
The people's voice was so strong back then where they just didn't do anything to me. And even though they tried, but they failed, because I just come to understand that when Allah decrees something for an individual, it's going to be done. And I believe that it was decreed for me to go to that situation to become the man that I am today. So that's why I always say alhamdulillah for everything, because being 18 years old, going through that, of course, a heavy burden on my shoulder, and a life to deal with it. But it was because of the people. Every time I went inside that courtroom, I seen so many black people out there giving me the Black Power salute, telling me they praying for me. So that was a source of inspiration and motivation.
Hey, do we have time for another 15-minute call before you have to leave?
Yeah, we got more time.
Okay, give him a call back, and we'll migrate to Florence and Normandy when you get back.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was Mike, we talked about this before. I was sitting in Tehachapi. I mean, not Tehachapi. I was in Vacaville. Right, I was in the day room when I first saw the riots. Like, now it's like I was sitting there like, I mean, it was shocking to me. Like, when they started, and then because as the day went on, everything just started to burn, and it was so shocking because first of all, it started there on Florence and Normandy. That's the set, right? So they like that, right? Those places. Right. That's one thing, and then you start to see the greater Los Angeles start to burn down, and all of that too. So you're like, damn, man, it's like going down, and you got mixed, right? Like you saying, okay, like that needs to happen, but like you seeing the place you from, like
right.
Burning down
the stores you shopped at. You like, dang, because Chicago was one of the stores I shopped at. I was like, don't burn that down. Right.
And when I got out in '95, right? To me was that they had that almost nothing had been rebuilt in '95.
Right.
That was kind of shocking. Like I got out, and then I'm like, the riots was like 3 years ago, and another almost. But I guess I was maybe thinking that things should happen a little quicker. But then I got out in 22, and I'm over there. Okay, little Damon's calling back, and it's also like still all jacked up, and Hold on, let me put him on.
California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Yeah, it's also.
You have a prepaid.
Okay, here
Thank you for using.
But it's still jacked up now. Like it's still, the community is still suffering from the LA riots. Wa alaikum salam. So I mean, still the community. I say suffering from the LA riots, but I'm saying that all that what people were supposed to rebuild, almost nothing changed. If you look at it now and you look at it 30 years ago, like it's almost nothing changed. I was shocking. I was telling my wife about that when I was driving for the first time, being back. I'm like, my goodness, man, it's like this looks like exactly the same what we know. Like, what is this? Like you,
Right,
how
right, right.
this is developmental. It was like exactly the same as we left. Okay, so Lil Dane, we're gonna migrate over to Florence and Normandy. So you said that people had been gathering. So by the time that you got there, there had already been people gathering gathered over already on the corner.
No, when we came off 71st after the LAPD dispersed, people had already was driving by and they was seeing us and they was parking in cars and they was jumping out because they heard the verdict as well. So by the time we migrated, we went from 30 people to probably about like 70 people on all four corners. And when the people went to the corner, people went screaming, "The white man ain't got nothing coming over. The white man ain't got nothing. Anything white, we taking them down. Anything white, we taking them down." Based on what they did to Rodney King. And as we was out there, it was dudes, brothers coming from other areas, talking about, man, it ain't no cripple blood thing, it's a black thing, it's a black thing. So you got all these black men and women all in the same area, all full of rage.
I didn't know that.
Everybody at the verge, and everybody looking to get again. The 6-2 brims came, 5-9 brims came. Some of the 6-0s came that way. Some of the Hoovers came that way. It was quite a few different individuals.
Yeah, that's crazy, huh?
Man, they ain't got no cookies. Yeah, they came up for life.
You hear it in first, folks, right here on Gangsta. Wow, I did not know that. Yeah, that's amazing. So how did the violence start? What started the violence that we've seen on those television cameras? How did that start?
Somebody migrated down towards the dog store. That's when they had the little mini mart down here with the Asian man. And
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I believe a group of individuals went down there, and next thing you know, you see people running up out of there with alcohol and things of that nature, and people fighting. So when they came back towards Florence and Normandy, was fair game. Everybody just ran up in there. When they ran up in there with the grabbing all that stuff, they ran up in the gas station across the street. They ran up in our zone, and then when any passenger that came by that didn't have a black face, that was white, they was getting it. They was getting bricks thrown at them. They was getting bottles thrown at them. Sticks. Anything that a person could pick up back then was being thrown at them people as they was passing by if they wasn't black.
So how long had you been on the corner before Reginald Denny came through, and what were you doing before Reginald came through? What was your role there before the truck came through?
Directing traffic, throwing rocks, screaming and hollering, chasing at the cars, running in and out of the store, grabbing sodas. When the car wrecked, we'll run towards the car until we realize who in the car. Then it'd be so many people running after the car that had wrecked, I would just walk away and just keep going up and down throughout the street through the whole time until the truck incident. So I had been here for like probably about an hour and a half before he pulled up.
Okay, so Reginald Denny comes through. You're not the person who stops him. We see that on the video. You didn't stop him. You didn't pull him out the truck. You didn't start beating him. But what makes you join in that ruckus? What's going on in you that says, okay, this dude is being brutally beat. Let me go join.
That hate I had in my heart at that time for white people, based on, you got to understand, the story is deeper for me because, I was with my uncle, rest in peace. His name was Askari part of the dog. I don't want to give you no bits and pieces. I want you to know specifically what led to these transgressions against the video at that time. Because I was with my uncle that came from the Deep South. And being with my uncle from the Deep South, he had to leave Mississippi and come to California because he went inside what you call back then a tip joint. If you know what a tip joint is, the place where people gather and dance in the country. And he had an altercation with some white boys in Mississippi, and they ended up busting his head. They knocked him unconscious, almost killed him, but she had to have a plane fed. So back then, the white folks, they were serious back in the 1960s and 70s. So they gave my grandmother an ultimatum. If he don't leave Mississippi, we're going to kill him. So they ended up sending him to California, and he came living with my mama in California. But remind me, I was a teen on the chain. So when I used to be sitting down with him, he would be on the porch drinking that black velvet vodka and that night frame. And you know what them two things mixed together do to a black man? You finna get some real shit come out of some people know. So my instilling me power and telling me about my culture and telling me not to never steal nobody that don't look like me and how thankful they was and how they were caring and how would they live. So what I always tell everybody, my Uncle Dog Baby made me a part of his cult. I was the only member because he instilled in me belief system where you can do one to me that I can't do back to you when it came to representing the people as black people. So over all the years, he was getting up a fighting in the seasons how he was fighting the LAPD when they would come over there when he was drunk and he would stand up against them. It instilled in me, oh yeah, this is what it is. And the Dog Baby doing this when it comes to these people, I'm going to do the same thing. So when I was on Florence and Army, my Uncle Dog Baby voice is something in my head. Don't show no mercy. Give them exactly what they gave y'all. Give them exactly what they did to our ancestors. It's how that man used to talk to me when I was young. So when I seen that man coming up out that truck, I said, here's my opportunity to get back for my Uncle Dog Baby. Because they bust my uncle head back in Mississippi in the 1960s. Hey, said it was only right. I keep Wallahi, I said it was only right. I just to get back for my Uncle Dog Baby. So when I did it, when I hit him in the head, I said, oh, period. Even though it was wrong, I think it's the time that I think about it now. But back then, I get back for my Uncle Dog Baby. And that's why I rejoiced and threw my leg up and I threw a base great gangster because I just wasn't doing it for my Uncle Dog Baby. I was doing it for black people. And at the time, I was so deep in the gangsterism, I was doing it for
Yeah, that's
very interesting.
Yes, that's some deep stuff. So, but
Right.
that's one of the things
Exactly.
that's coming to mind while you're talking is that there's always kind of secondary motivations behind everything that we do and how we are and why we are. The fierceness that we bring to the fight and all those types of things, they all come from some previous pain, right? They don't come to people think, oh, he's down and all this. That's not really what it is. It's like hurt people, and
Right.
when you're a gangster, what ends up happening is that you have an outlet now for this hurt. You have an outlet
For that anger. Right.
and you
To
can put
release
it
that
on
anger through violence. Right.
right. So
And that's what you have to remember, Askari, and that I was wounded. Remember, this man had violated me when I was a young dude, when I was 8 years old. So growing up in South Central, being around all these individuals that was hurt as well, my uncle hurt became my hurt. My brother came. My brother came when I opened the door at 10 years old and let them people apprehend him, not knowing what was going on. All I see is some faces at the door asking for my brother. I didn't know my brother was going and don't come back for 30 years. If I would have knew that at that age, I would have told him to run. But I didn't know. So I got all this damage in me. I got all this pain, all this suffering in me. So when 1992 comes, wallahi, I was a walking time bomb. I didn't care because I was hurt. I really wanted to die. So that's why I was so fearless when I was going up against anybody, because I really wanted them to kill me, but I wouldn't have to feel that pain no more of my uncle being dead, my brother going to jail when I was 10, not having a father in my home, and then being molested. You know how much pain I had in it? I think it was by the grace and mercy of Allah that I was able to heal. And that's why even when I was in prison, and I've been on drugs with both of y'all, that's why I was going so strong, because I still hadn't healed. I still wanted to die because I thought I was a blood. Kept on fighting. kept on studying, kept on asking questions, and that's how I was able to come up out of that pain and suffering and be the man I am today. Even though I got beside in prison, 20-something years later, but honestly say, wallah, I swear by Allah, I'm the most happiest I've ever been in my life, and I'm pain-free. So I went through all that pain and suffering, but got me caught up in the LA riots in 1992. It's the point where I'm at night, where I'm at now. But believe it, it's a lot of black men that have suffered the same thing that I suffered. It's not here to talk about it. I want to. I want to get it up. I want it, but I'm here.
Yeah. Now you have never had an opportunity to speak with Reginald Denny for sure, right? I don't know if they so you have an opportunity now to say, and I don't know if he's I honestly actually not follow his case. So I don't know if he's still alive. I know sure his family would be, but what would you say to Mr. Denny now, as the man that you are today, as opposed to the man that you were when you victimized him in 92?
What the truth is, actually, I would apologize for it because I understand what my actions did, and I understand that my actions almost took his life. My actions almost took him away from his mother. It almost took him away from his father. It almost took him away from his wife at that time, and his daughter at that time. And as I looked at it from a broad perspective, what took place in 1992 on Florence and Normandy was not the correct response. That was a response that did more hurt to Florence and Normandy than it did. Right. Because like you said as well, here it is 30-something years later, things have not changed in our community for the better. They actually changed for the worse. Because why? The young black men are still dying. Black women are still getting raped in our community. It's still being drugged further in our community. Our people are still suffering. So how did it help us? It didn't. So what I say that to say this, that I'm glad by the grace and mercy of Allah that man did not die. Like, we're glad that he's able to continue to live a prosperous life wherever he may be. And if I was able to see him today in 2023, I would embrace him and I would let him know sincerely what took place. I truly apologize, not just for myself, but for my loved one as well, Antoine, because, he did it. So I would apologize, and I know a lot of people would disagree. They going to apologize. They did this, did that. They did that to us. Hey, Archie, two rights don't make a wrong. Two wrongs don't make a right. Somebody got to take the high road. And what I learned in my faith of Islam, I follow the example of Prophet Muhammad upon him. And if you know Islam like I know Islam because you was my teacher on the yard, how can I want mercy from Allah willing to give mercy? How do I want forgiveness from Allah and I'm not willing to give forgiveness? How do I want Allah to fix me?
You have 60 seconds remaining. This call and your telephone number will be monitored.
Before we go, and we'll continue some more recordings tomorrow. But before we go, I want to ask this question.
I got one more
call. You got one more? Okay, cool. All right. And when we come back, I want to ask this question. Or just come back and I'll ask the question when you come on back.
Okay. All right,
inshallah. Yeah. So we learning some. Hey, Mike. We learning some stuff, man.
We learning some new information that wasn't out there.
Was not out there.
Right. And really, what we learning his mindset, how he was thinking at that time in his life. Right. Because people just think that we wake up and go outside and commit horrible acts. Nah, we become those people over time. Because of the hurt we done experienced. A lot of times when you victimize somebody, it's because you was a victim first. Somebody had already victimized you,
Yeah. And he's speaking to that, and talking about having been molested, and how that pain, I can imagine having to carry that kind of pain with you. He's calling back here. Having to carry that kind of pain if you have a prepaid throughout your life. And I didn't even know that he was the one that opened the door for the police to get Big Ball. I mean, you got to live with that.
You gotta live with that as a younger brother,
Right.
you know, and as a kid,
Yeah.
you feel
Right.
you're partly responsible.
Right. And, you know, and people, you know, logically you're not responsible. You're 10 years old. But like,
Exactly.
you know,
Right.
man, I'm the one who opened the door. Like, wow, you know, you got to walk around with
Right.
that. So, hey, so Lil Dane, let me ask you this question here. All right. So I don't know if you would be in a position to know this or not, but talk to me about this. There were rumors, right, or justifications about what happened to Reginald Denny. One of them was that he was screaming out "nigga" um, as he was driving through the intersection. I don't believe that to be logical, but you tell me if you know that did that happen or not.
Hey, Aki Wallahi, I didn't hear none of that. So if
Yeah.
that's what they saying. I
Right.
didn't hear.
I mean, it just seems logical to me. I'm saying it's illogical. I mean, you have to be on a suicide mission to see all those Africans on that corner. You're driving a truck through an intersection and you gonna roll your window down and start screaming out "nigga." You got to be like you got to want to die. So I never believed
We
that.
wasn't in. Actually, we wasn't in Alabama. We was in South Central.
Not only we was
I
right,
wanted to say that
and we was on Florence and Normandy, huh? So,
yeah, and on Florence and Normandy.
but not we, but y'all.
If that was, if that was the South, you probably could believe that. But in California at that time, nah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wherever
Absolutely.
but you know what, when our people, everything is going to up. People will take a one and put a hundred on our time and get to us. He was the Ku Klux Klan, but at the end of the day, we don't repay wrong with wrong. We have to repay.
But I wanted to say that I wanted to make sure that there was no understanding that we weren't going to walk away today with people believing that Reginald Denny had done anything wrong. Reginald Denny was a truck driver doing his job. He was just driving a truck from one place to another. Right, and a victim of circumstance. He had done nothing wrong and done nothing to justify or I'm sorry, go ahead.
He was at the wrong place. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Plain and simple.
Right.
The same way as we had quick and split over there on Slauson and Crenshaw, then who we were back then as representatives of the trade gangs. We know we couldn't get it done. We know them boys, the rolling 60 years over there. They know they've been a service. You know that, I know that, and that man just happened to be a victim of circumstances in the wrong place at the wrong time, just like any other innocent bystander that was hurt, not just on Florence and Normandy, anywhere within Los Angeles, California in 1992. A lot of people take pride in that day, especially for their own community. I'm going to be the first one to tell you, I don't take pride in it because to me, that's the symbol of unnecessary bloodshed. It's what I knew now. And if we want to bring up our people to get on the football field, start getting up in the colleges and getting into education, political science, and things of that nature, and let's start putting our own people in office so they can govern our own community as councilwomen and officers and things of that nature. And so when they come back to the community, we can have them and we can bring the effective things. But at the same time, only way we can fix our problems over there is we got to fix our state of mind in our own community because we are biggest nightmare in our own community. We the ones that's doing preaching all that's happening in our own community. So let's stop pointing the finger outside our community and start taking responsibility within our own community. And the way we do that, we got to become better men and better women. And like I always tell the young Crips, especially in prison, it's easy to be a Crip, but it's hard as hell to be a grown ass man if you don't have the proper tools.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, that's that I guess that leads me into my next thing, right? So we all know that Monster Cody gained a lot of fame, right? Throughout his life. And that he had this was a hella smart dude. Like this is like a you know, he's like hella smart, right? And that he had changed his political views in such ways, and he was talking about things, the kind of things that you were talking about, you know, like, you know, community and education within the community and people growing, You know, his demons didn't allow him to ever to fully actualize that dream or his understanding, but he did achieve, you know, that kind of you know, stardom. And you have a long history with Monster, right? Um, and I'm not going to be asking any of the controversial history or anything like that. Monsters, you know, TIP, he's resting, so we're gonna honor that. You know, when we talk, but I want you to talk to me about that. Like, what you can't help but, I mean, so you know, my Monster and I, like, we go back to like maybe 86, 87 when I first saw, I was in Y, and I would write him while he was in the pen, somewhere around that time, right? And that's where I always wanted to not be Monster, but I always wanted to be in that echelon. And I know I never could achieve it, right? You know, like you were mentioning my name earlier, in the name, like with Baby Duck and you was mentioning my name with Crazy D and all. I mean, you know, like I was like, what's this dude doing? Like, no.
I was always taught if you get one day to you recognize it, even if you played a small role or big role, it was dangerous back then. So you have to give homage to where homage is due.
Yeah.
And when I mention you, Askari, I mention you in two ways. When you came up in Duke's representation, Gangster, these criticisms you did, and you was able to make that transition into the religion of Islam, and you stood firm on that when everybody else was getting upset with you because you was calling so many of the loved ones to Islam. And at that time, Clifton was at an all-time high. You could have been hurt, and you was able to withstand the test of time. So you could think of withstand the test of time in society. You also did it in prison on the message to New York. So I got to name you.
Hey, little ball.
You would have crumbled.
Little ball.
So that's why I got to. Yes, sir.
Hey, when I first really started respecting J Mouse, and I knew he was really with it, is one time me and him got into it. Can you remember that, J Mouse?
Yeah, you told me you say I'll pick up that 70-pound bum dumbbell and bring you. And I remember that.
Hey, ball. But he stood up to me. At that time, niggas wasn't standing up to me, homie. He stood up to me. And I was like, I respected it. I was like, yeah, I could fuck with this dude right here, you know? So he is mentioned in that category.
You mentioned that
nice. But so let me say this. When you're there on Florence and Norman, you're doing this thing. What happens after that? Nobody knows about that. What happened when all the chaos and the thing is done? What happens? Where do you go? Who are you talking to? What's the feeling? What's going on there?
So then we dispersed. We went out to the rich community. We were looking for the diamonds and the gold and all the money. We left the community because we knew it wasn't no money in the community. So people started migrating to Beverly Hills, Hollywood, and part of West LA to the suburbs. We were looking for the come up after all that.
Oh, okay.
So everybody left them over there.
And went over to is it the area where the trial was held? Because I remember seeing that on the news that's where a lot of people went.
You know, we were to Beverly Hills. We went to over off of Venice and Pico, wherever we felt it was a come up.
Okay. Okay.
Stores, things of that nature. Everybody was just in cars. Everybody was just going a different direction, and we all had walkie-talkies. So somebody might be way on rodeo. Somebody might be on Pico. Somebody might be by Venice Beach. We all had that two-way walkie-talkie, and they're telling us where it's at. Everybody was trying to migrate to get there before everybody else get there.
Okay, now
so we can get to do it.
What I'm going to ask you about now, what I'm going to ask you, okay, Michael's back. And what I'm going to ask you about now is this. As you were talking, something came to mind. That was the first time in my history where police just stopped policing, right? They just banked out. They like, we gone, we're done, and you know, this what y'all go do what y'all do. So you all clearly, I mean, you're on walkie-talkies coordinating robberies from, you know, miles away from each other. So you all had no fear of the police at that time. What was talk to me about that? What did that feel like? What was going on in the mentality there?
And when the police dispersed, and like I said, once again, going up in them times, the police didn't disperse. We dispersed. You see them actually leave that area and didn't come back. We feel we had a victory. We feel we conquered. We feel like how Hannibal and Sonny Lee Overture felt back when it was part of the slave rebellion in order to run people up out of their country. That's how we feel. We ran the LAPD out of our community. We can't get by now. And everybody, blew up. They scared of it. They scared of it, and they dispersed. So we was on a national high. We felt that we was untouchable, and we had that mentality for a few days until they started coming getting us in hand.
So they I know they did eventually regroup and get their policing thing back together, right? You know, we also that because that's a part of American history. At some point, they came back. They started doing it.
No, they never came back to Florence.
No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about LA in general. There was lawlessness in LA, the whole of LA. It just started on Florence and Normandy, but it spread to all of Los Angeles. And they had to call the National Guard. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, the National Guard came. You got to remember when the National Guard came, Askari, they had guns that we had never seen before. And when they were sticking them guns out, I personally said, I'm done. I'm not going to get shot by that. Hey, they had guns so big that you could kill an elephant with. I had never seen a gun that big. The biggest gun I ever seen was an AK-47, and Monster Cody told me that. I had never seen a gun bigger than that. And when they was coming out with that stuff that they got in the military, I said, "This for real, Bill. I'm gone." I got out the way.
Oh yeah, so that brings me back because we were talking about Monster, and I want to talk about so Monster was a big figure on the North, right? And then you became a big figure on the North. And was he in jail when that happened? What happened there? You know,
I was on the street in '88 when Monster got out. That's when he got out. I think from San Quentin or something. And when Monster came home, we was already active. We was already representing the North to the fullest. What he did with me to be intensified. Because yes, he is a reputable from the North. Yes, he is a reputable from A-Trade. Yes, he was on Monster for the man after 20 years on, and he came home with a military state of mind. And I'll be honest with you.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I spent a lot of time with him, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Monster, the one that taught me about Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, Sun Tzu, and Machiavelli and all this stuff. Because one thing about Monster back then when he first got out, all the little homies from the North Side, he educated us on three things: military warfare, economic warfare, and revolutionary warfare. He taught us that in his mama backyard. Well, I can't take that from him. That's what he did. He took back in that backyard. He trained us, and that's what made us so aggressive on that North Side. He showed us how to do burpees. We didn't know what burpees was in '88, 16, 17 years ago. He taught us that.
Yeah. All right, we you got to go now. But what we're going to do is when we do some more episodes, we're going to do some more episodes. We want to some more interviews and talk. It's just so much we could talk to you about. And we'll have you back on Gangsta-Gangsta so that we can talk to you again. We'll take this one into the shop, edit it up, get it ready to go. Okay, he fell off. So he's on that jail tablet. So that's what happens is they only get that 15 minutes. But this was actually enlightening. It was there was something very kind of enlightening about the way he was able to show what was going on in his mind at the time that all of these things were happening. and also what was going on in kind of the community's mind, like what was going on there. Again, I was in jail, and I know that if I was out, I'd have been destroying my community the same way. I'd have been, recklessly, engaged in mindless violence and in the nonsense, because that's where we were, and I really want to talk to him about where he is now, because I personally know his growth. He was one of my students, and I know his growth, and I want everybody else to be able to see that, like who he has become, and why he is absolutely not, who he was. We didn't talk about the crime for which he is in prison now, the murder that he's in prison for, or how that happened. We'll next time we get him on, we'll be able to talk about some of those things, what happened there. But and I also want to talk to him, about talk about, because I want to get into that thing about being a gangster, like what ends up happening when you grow and become a gangster, when you become a figure, and you become a well-known individual in gang culture. What happens to you? Like what? Because it takes something else from you. It's different than just being a gang member, right? Something's taken from you then as well, just being a gang member. But when you become a known gang member, when you have some kind of notoriety, and you stepping it up and you a little extra, there's there's some other stuff going on, and I want to talk to him about that. And even you, like when we get together and do some more of our personal interviews, I want to talk to you about that, because you were. I remember. I actually remember it was a little ball telling me that he said, like, yeah, the pup is gonna be passing the mantle to the baby duck. So I was like, what? I'm like, whoa, like we'll talk about that kind of thing. Because there is a lot of history, contained within Gangsta, because Gangsta is one of the legacy sets. It's been around since the beginning, in one form or another, right? We could talk about that too, that history, that transit from the West Side Crips to the Trey line to Gangsta, and how that happened. We get people on to talk about all of that. Absolutely want to get some 6-0s on and start talking about that, or like what happened there, what was going on their side of the tracks, right? Like, we know how we saw them.
Exactly.
I wonder how they saw us, and
exactly right.
And what was their mentality, and right. were they as afraid of us as we were of them?
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, they would have had to be, because come on.
Right. They was coming over in our area, we was going over in their area. Yeah. And that was like a non-stop thing. So
and that history of, like, that's where gangbanging began. Gangbanging, as we understand it, happened between gangsters and 6-0s. Right?
Exactly.
That's where the gang, and I mean, when I say gang banging, I'm talking about that tense, almost insane rivalry type of stuff started there. Right. And that's not to take nothing from nobody else's set. We ain't talking about nobody else being less than, or they ain't got the on that kill thing. They everybody eventually got there.